Bushi had to release those cards right after the moment that I discussed the whole new Shirayuki playstyle. In the previous Shirayuki Cardfight update, I talked about the potential of the card and what it could do if we get bounce type effects or card effects that allow us to clear the field. And hold and behold, right after that video came out, not even, 3 hours, we got these new cards. Yeah. We need to talk about Shirayuki yet again. Stand up! Vanguard! Hey Cardfighters, welcome back to another Cardfight update, and today we're going to dive once again back into the new Shirayuki support that's going to come in Clan Selection Plus Volume 1. Now, granted, these cards were revealed or released last weekend or right before we got the Link Joker reveals, but I didn't have the time to talk about those cards, and then we got the bombshell of Chaos Breaker Dragon with the whole shenanigans and the very interesting Jewel Knight archetype that came also with that support. So I had to cover that beforehand. So if you haven't seen either of those Cardfight updates, that link is on top. Cards look pretty interesting and there's a lot to discuss. So definitely check out those videos either before this video or just after it once I'm done talking about this new Shirayuki support. So that said, we're going to take a look at the new Shirayuki support cards, the Grade 1 and the Grade 2, that came right after they released or revealed Shirayuki on the very first day of 2021. And let's first take a look at Shirayuki herself again, so we have quite a refresher and understand what we're working with. And I want to clarify something that I overlooked when I first discussed the card. So here we have, of course, the brand new Shirayuki, 6 Flowers of Phantasmens, Shirayuki. And we all know what she can do. You've probably already seen the previous Cardfight update. Otherwise, again, links on top where I discussed that one in very much more detail than we're going to do in this video. But basically what she is, she's another copy of Shirayuki in deck or in dropzone, so it works with the old Shirayuki support. And we can use her as a defensive tool to minus one of her opponent's units for 30k power for one battle for the cost of the old Shirayuki. And then probably more importantly, her main effect, which basically allows us to have a not on hit effect on all of her attacks. That allows us to not only give her opponent minus 10k power on their Vanguard, but to also superior call a potential Shirayuki card from the drop zone to an open rearguard circle. Now, in that previous video, I speculated about the potential of some bounce effects or a way that we can open up the field, so we could potentially multi-tech inherently within the deck without relying on just not calling enough units to the field. Now, I overlooked 2 specific cards that work already within this playstyle. One of those cards is Rahimi Madame, the old Shirayuki Grade 1 support card. That card allows us to open up a slot on the field mid-battle, because that card, just like this new Shirayuki, both have a not on hit effect over all our attacks. And what we basically can do is, when one of our attacks does not hit, we can use the Rahimi Madame, shove it into the soul, potentially get a Shirayuki from the drop zone to her hand, and then we resolve the new Shirayuki that allows us to then superior call to that open circle that just opened up. And we probably can play the Rahimi Madame on an Axel circle because it will hit on its own for 13k, and that means that we can then call the new Shirayuki to that Axel marker or Axel circle, which is really good. Then on top of that, we also have another older Grade 1, which is Reiko Slug, which basically does the same thing. At the end of the battle, it boosted the unit. You can shove that unit that it boosted to the bottom of your deck to give more power to the field. And then, if one of your attacks did not hit, you can then call a unit to that new opened up zone, so you can inherently multi-attack. So those 2 options are available to Shirayuki already before we got this new support card. So with it explained, let's take a look at these new Grade 1s and Grade 2s to further understand what the new Shirayuki is capable of and what Murakumo has in store for us. So first off, let's take a look at a new Grade 1, which is Apprentice yokai sasamayuki. And sasamayuki has the ability Auto on Vanguard Circle. When placed, look at the 7 cards on top of your deck, reveal up to 1 card with Shirayuki and its card name from among them, and put them in your hand and shuffle your deck. Very generic, we've seen this time and time again. It's basically another way to search out our main cards, in this case both are Shirayukis, which is really good, because even if we get excess amount of copies of Shirayuki near the game, we can still use them very effectively. So this actually might be better than most of those generic cards that search out multiple Grade 3s, like we have with the Vanquisher one. Now, it also has a second effect, which is Auto Rearguard Circle. Once a turn, when your Vanguard with Shirayuki in its card name is placed, you may soul charge 1. So another very easy way to gain more soul. This is quite slow in general because it only generates 1 soul turn and it only starts from your turn 3 onwards. And you need to ride every single turn to gain that soul. Now, of course, in a Shirayuki pure deck, you probably want to ride every single turn because not only do you get more axle circles, you also generate more soul by just riding. So it makes sense. And as soon as you can keep fetching those Shirayukis from your drop zone to your hand, it actually makes a lot of sense. So this basically gives us 1 soul every single turn from our turn 3 turn onwards. Not the most amazing cards, but it's a nice extra addition. Now, the more important one and the interesting one was the Grade 2, which was released just hours after my previous video, which is Ice Fang Princess Sura rahimi. And Sura rahimi is exactly what I was speculating in the previous video about this bounce effect, but it's even better because its skills is auto and Vanguard circle. When placed, you may call a card with Shirayuki in its card name from your hand to the rearguard circle. If you call the card at the end of the turn, return the rearguard called with this effect to your hand, and if you have 1 or less cards in your soul, soul charge 1. So what this effectively means is that you can call your grade 3 early on onto the field to be more aggressive, but it returns to your hand, which means the Shirayuki is safe from harm. But more importantly, this card wants you to use the Shirayuki effect once you place it onto the field. Because for Soul Blast 2, you can give your opponent's Vanguard minus 5k, and in the early game, that means they're probably 2, 3, 4k power. Because once you do that, your soul becomes 0. Because you have your grade 0 and your grade 1 in the soul. They are then removed. And because that's effect, you soul charge 1 at the end of the turn once you bounce back to Shirayuki, which means the Shirayuki effect was effectively Soul Blast 1. And honestly, Soul Blasting 1 to give your opponents minus 5k power in the early game could be very detrimental, especially if you have a booster somewhere, because that means you give your units extra 5k power, so that's really good for some aggressive plays. But on top of that, this card also has the skill, Auto and Rearguard Circle. At the end of your turn, if you have a Vanguard with Shirayuki in its card name, cost, put this unit into your soul, return 1 of your normal units on the Rearguard Circle to your hand. So basically, this card can allow you to bounce back your Shirayukis on the Rearguard Circle back to your hand, and it generates you extra soul. Granted, this is at the end of the turn, so it doesn't give you the multi-tech potential, which I was speculating in the previous video, but this is actually much better, because as I already explained earlier in this video, we already have the potential multi-tech potential in the clan, thanks to Rainy Madame and Reiko Slug. But this card allows us to keep reusing our Shirayukis turn after turn after turn after turn. It not only fuels the Shirayuki because it goes into the soul, it also allows you to get those cards back into your hand so you can place them once again onto the field, or more importantly, keep rewriting them onto your Vanguard Circle turn after turn, which then synergizes with the new grade 1 that also gets you soul. Because effectively, what you can do is call Shirayuki to the Rearguard Circle, call this grade 2 and have the grade 1 into the field, then at the end of the turn, this goes into the soul, you bounce back to Shirayuki, then next turn you write in the Shirayuki, gain another soul, and you just generated 2 soul, which then can be used to Soul Blast 2 to give your 3 of your opponent's units minus 10k power if you write the old Shirayuki. So this card, together with Yagatsu Girl, together with Rainy Madame, together with the new grade 2, which allows you to just copy any card from the deck and then send to the drop zone, which name I cannot come off the top of my head, but you will probably see it here on the screen right now. If you combine all those cards together, you will have almost full access to all your Shirayukis, no matter where they are, and you can keep calling them, bouncing them, calling them, bouncing them, keep minusing your opponent's units, and doing this over and over and over and over again with potential multi-tech within that. So these new cards for Shirayuki are incredibly powerful, and they make the new pure Shirayuki build a lot more consistent, because you have this grade 2, which inherently allows you to reuse the cards. You have your Yagatsu, which can check the top 7 for any Shirayuki, which now we have 8 copies. We have Rainy Madame that can bounce them back from the drop zone. We have the new grade 3 Shirayuki that can call them from the drop zone. We have, of course, the older grade 2 from the Yasue set, which once again I cannot come for the life of me of the name of the card, which can put those Shirayuki to the drop zone, which then can be basically fetched out with Rainy Madame or with the new grade 3 Shirayuki. And you basically have a super consistent engine on your hand, which is actually pretty powerful. Because yes, none of these cards gain power, but the power that they gain comes from the power minus that you give your opponent thanks to your grade 3 Shirayukis. So overall, Shirayuki is looking pretty lit. It's pretty hot, which is kind of ironic because it's an ice demon. But you cannot deny the fact that from all the cards we've seen from this set and all the support cards around it, this is probably the strongest deck that we might get out of the set so far. And probably the obvious reason for that is because it's Shirayuki. We already had the old Shirayuki playstyle, or the older cards, which were already pretty good. And now we build on top of it with actual good new support cards. Whereas all the other cards that we've seen for all the other clans are brand new playstyles that are kind of generic or maybe a bit gimmicky, that are fine and work to some extent, but aren't really as powerful as they are. Dual Knights is probably the best generic new addition because they can be used in any Royal Paladin deck, but they do not feel as strong as the new Shirayuki support cards attached to the new or the older Shirayuki cards we already had access to. And probably even Chaos Breaker Dragon isn't going to compete with this deck. But who knows, maybe it actually does. We have to wait and see. We have no results just yet. Maybe the top deck heroes can answer that question. So, Philip, Alex, do your magic. But that basically concludes this Cardfight update. Let me know in the comment section down below what you guys think of these new support cards for Shirayuki. What do you guys think of this new addition for Murakumo? Because, yeah, I think it's pretty good, but I know for a fact and know for certain that not everybody is gonna enjoy this as much as I do or some other Murakumo players. So let me know all your thoughts in the comment section down below. As always, this video has been brought to you by our lovely patrons over at patreon.com/VanguardInsider. You guys are amazing. If you do want to support the channel or everything that's happening on the channel, you can simply go to patreon.com/VanguardInsider and become a patron today. But with that said, I'm Mr. Time Leap, and I see you guys in the next one.